Even though labor and burnout goes hand in hand, just because you work a lot doesn't necessarily mean you are prone to burnout. Just because you're prone to burnout doesn't mean you're necessarily working a lot. Oftentimes, it has a lot to do with your strengths and weaknesses and how well they're compatible with the work that you do. Hello, it's Grace. Good to see you again. If you have watched my previous video about burnout, you know that I myself am very prone to burnout. So this has always been a passion topic of mine to find a solution to really resolve my vulnerable tendency to slip into a burnout. I watched my own video about burnout that I made a year ago, and honestly, I thought I would be very cringed out from doing it, but it wasn't as bad as I thought. 1 year later, I still thought that was a pretty good video, even though I was dressing like a grandma and I felt extremely embarrassed about that. So I was criticizing my appearance a little bit. But overall, the message was still very valuable, and this video is going to be a more in-depth extension of that. First of all, like the theme of many of my recent videos, we are going to look at the dopaminergic system in our brain because that can apply to many different aspects of our lives. Most people, when they hear about dopamine hits, they automatically think social media, gaming, drugs, shopping, parties, social interactions. Most people will not associate working with pleasure. Most people would never guess that actually you can be addicted to working, accomplishing and achieving goals. This was not on my radar at all because I always thought if someone says they love working and prioritize it over their health, either they genuinely love what they do 100%, or they're using it as a coping mechanism to avoid and distract themselves from difficult emotions. I never really considered how we can get a mental high from achieving and accomplishing tasks and goals. Sure, it feels really good to have finished a project or have won an award or a competition, but for a very long time, I thought that's what we are supposed to keep feeling, as if that's our goal, to keep chasing that feeling of being good, useful, competent, and great because it is so glorified in the society. These ideas of you should work hard and play hard, or you should be diligent if you want to be successful, are ingrained in many of us growing up without really understanding what success even means to us. How do most of us feel good at something? Most of the time, we do that through comparison and competition. Society is designed for us to play the superior and inferior game. When we achieve certain things and we're praised, and we look at other people who were not praised because they didn't achieve what you achieved, or it can be the opposite, that other people achieved things and got praised and you didn't get any attention, that's when you start to associate more competency and achievement as values of self-worth that you can earn. Naturally, in our minds, the more value you have means the more you are loved by others, because you're fulfilling a value set by external people and culture. And because as children, the currency of reward for us is love, recognition, connection, and attention. Since childhood, we start to develop more intense dopamine peaks whenever we achieve something or be recognized for our accomplishment and achievement, because we associate that feeling of achievement with more reward of love, recognition, and attention, which we may not have readily available when we are not being a perfect little high achiever. This is almost inevitable in most people's childhood as designed by our social culture. And honestly, I think it is okay to measure one's ability. There's nothing wrong with someone being better at something either by talent or practice. I think that people's gifts, talents, passion, and excellence should be recognized. But as children, we internalize a lot of limiting beliefs and we take a lot of things irrationally and emotionally that could potentially lead to an unhealthy relationship with our identity, especially under the influence of parents who were not very self-aware themselves. Based on what I just explained, although we do get a natural dopamine hit when we achieve or accomplish anything, let it be a task, a performance, finish a project, and win a competition because it simply feels good, we can get a more intensified dopamine peak with our unhealthy association or belief of more achievement equals to higher reward accompanied by more external love and recognition. i.e. approval. Disclaimer, by no means I did any scientific experiment to measure dopamine levels in people's brain to prove what I come up with. This is just my speculation and opinion based on the theory I have read and researched. So take what you want to take, but basically I think dopamine does play a role in us wanting to keep achieving more and more. And if we keep chasing those dopamine peaks and keep peaking over and over again, just like any other addiction, it can lower our baseline dopamine level, leads to a tolerance and us feeling extremely exhausted and unmotivated to do normal tasks in our lives that may not directly or immediately lead to an adequate sense of achievement. Despite feeling overstimulated by regular dopamine hits and experiencing the not so pleasant dopamine dips, we still always want to achieve more or have bigger achievement, thinking that would make us feel better again. Even anticipating something we want can spike our dopamine levels, so I can understand why constantly wanting to achieve more, just that want, can lead us into burnout and depression over time. It is also worth noting that this lowering of dopamine baseline may happen a lot more subtly than, say, a cocaine addiction, which I think is one of the reasons why many people are not aware of this phenomenon. If you want a more in-depth explanation of the dopaminergic system, I talk a lot more in depth in the It Is Okay to Be Different video, and there are also plenty of resources online if you are interested. I remember there was a time I was struggling with low self-esteem. I don't remember if it was a coaching or counseling session where I was asked to write down the achievements I have accomplished and to give myself the recognition I deeply craved internally. It was funny that I could barely think of 2 things I have accomplished recently, and I was shocked at how much I was underlooking myself due to the incredibly high standard I set for myself. After that, I thought maybe my standard is too high, and I started to recognize and count small accomplishments weekly, sometimes daily. It worked to some extent, but I still struggled with the pressure of needing to do more in a day, to accomplish more so that I could feel better with myself and I could have more achievements to count on. Sometimes, even if I tried really hard, I won't have any solid small achievements for days or weeks, and that made me feel behind, and the pressure is on again to push myself harder to accomplish more until one day I burn out. Fortunately, that's not the end of the story. What changed the game for me was, instead of rewarding achievement, I started to reward the process. Instead of counting achievement and anticipating how good it would feel when I finally achieve something, I start to give myself the recognition or mental praise of putting in the effort to do a task. For example, when I teach Pilates, instead of rewarding myself because the classes went smoothly and there is no nasty client that day as a result, outside of my control, I tell myself, well done for getting up and go teach today. Well done for showing up today, which is the action I chose that is completely in my control. Another example, instead of ticking off how many things I did off the to-do list, I tell myself, well done for putting X amount of time for this task, even if I did not end up finishing the task or technically achieved anything. Mentally, recognizing and rewarding my effort is still going to raise my dopamine level, but to a much smaller and gentler elevation that is much more balancing to our overall dopamine pool without declining the baseline. In addition, the process usually takes much longer than getting an instant result of an achievement. So it is also much more sustainable to keep providing yourself the recognition you need on things you can control rather than on outcomes that are outside of your control. Which is basically like wishing you win in a gambling game and only reward yourself if you are lucky enough to win. It sounds ridiculous, but that's what we're doing to ourselves when we condition ourselves to value achievement or result rather than the process. Because no matter how much effort we put in, it does not guarantee that we will achieve the result we desire in our heart. This is something we cannot fully control. I know it may sound counterintuitive, but when I shift my goal from the result to the process, it loosens the pressure for me to set a target for how much effort I need to put in to achieve a specific result, which releases me from burning out. Although pretty much the whole world is hyper-focused on results still, internally choosing to value the process more than the result finally allows me to enjoy the process. Recognizing how much value I'm putting into and how much value I can put into the process is shifting the message I tell myself that I'm not good enough to achieve anything big in my life to I have so much value to make the process a really fun and exciting journey. I have so much personal power in how I want to run the show and how I contribute to the process. There is so much I can do instead of whatever I do is never enough for the achievement I dream of, or hurry up, otherwise you won't make it and other people will. Apart from rewarding your thought patterns and decentralize how much power and reward you are giving to the results, it is also important to consider the dilemma for many of us who are high achievers and burnouters shifting from doing to being. If you know about transactional analysis, you probably have heard about the Be Perfect driver. There are other drivers as well, but that's for another video at another time. Basically, a lot of people who have their Be Perfect driver becomes obsessive workaholics because they are always buried in doing more and more, achieve more and more, to be good enough, to be perfect enough for their internalized parents. But the script they have is they never end up feeling good or perfect enough, so they've got to keep working to the day they die, basically. It's very sad, I know, but I can highly relate to this pattern. Remember I mentioned earlier about unhealthy relationships of identity children can develop? This is one of those where the child feels they cannot be who they are. They have to be perfect through trying and doing more. The key healing point for those individuals is to accept that they are indeed imperfect because nobody is, and they can be loved just for being the way they are naturally. That they can start to love and accept themselves just the way their natural child wants to be. That is one of the keys to treat the root cause of burnout, perfectionism, and workaholism. Although I understand the theory, I know I still have a long way to go in healing from the Be Perfect driver. Even if I keep reminding myself that I don't need to be perfect to be okay, I'm okay already. When we live in a world or working environment or social culture that still value and strive for perfect outcomes and weakens your self-esteem over and over again by projecting their belief onto you, there are still times I get carried away when times are stressful and my survival instinct kicks in. I just want to say that's completely normal and okay. We are not trying to be perfect here. Let's apply what we learned today in the here and now, shall we? Whatever your situation might be, well done for differentiating yourself from the rest of the world, and especially the critical parents that were let in when you were younger and are still living inside you. Well done for loving yourselves as the way God made you in the womb to be. And a big well done for putting the time and effort to watch this video and chill with me till the end. Rest well, play well, bye!